Anthropomorphic animals, the beloved staple of animation from its very inception. There's nothing an audience loves to see more than cartoon animals and their fun, zany antics and slapstick comedy. In the West, they're referred to as funny animals, but what about in the East? Did Japan get the memo that funny animals are supposed to be funny ha-ha and not funny weird? No, they did not. Welcome back, folks. I'm Mecha-May. This is my engineer, Mew-Bot 5000, and over here is our navigator, Musk 13. While Mew-Bot is serving up the clips, Musk 13 is guiding us to the nearest broadcast signal out here in outer space. Today we are talking about cute little animals, just like these two, but even less funny. Japanese animation loves to be cute and it loves to be violent, and sometimes it loves to be two things at once. First up, we have... oh no, not Future War 198X again. Oh, phew. This isn't Future War 198X, it's Penguin's Memory, Shiawase Monogatari, which is a feature from 1985 that's about love gained, love lost, and a penguin with PTSD. Also beer. Not that any beer is drunk. Drank? Drinked in the movie. The beer is the sponsor, Suntory, a liquor company that ran a series of TV ads about the indelible bonds of love between a girl penguin jazz singer and a boy penguin sad sack. The ads became really popular, so Suntory sponsored a feature-length film from CM Land, the same studio that made the commercials, centered around the two cute little penguins. I imagine Suntory said something like, "Give us a cute little story about these penguins, and make sure to include some fun, upbeat pop songs." And CM Land said, "Oh sure, leave it to us." And then I guess they went to see a double feature of The Deer Hunter and Coming Home, and here we are. In any case, it's preferable to other animated films starring brand mascots, so I can't complain about Penguin's Memory too much. The movie starts right out the gate with our hero, Mike, and two of his buddies, stranded in the jungle away from the rest of their unit in the midst of a violent war. William Tecumseh Sherman said war is hell, but even he couldn't imagine how bad it could be for birds native to Antarctica to fight a war in a tropical jungle. Mike is a sensitive bookworm who loves poetry, so he only listens patiently as his buddy Al describes the girl he loves as blonde and busty, which does lead to some interesting mental images. Eventually, Mike and his pals make contact with their comrades, just in time to witness them doing some war crimes. Mike waddles out, waving his flippers to get his side to stop killing civilians, but his buddy Tom gets filled with friendly fire, and Al forces Mike onto a departing copter before dropping to his death, while Mike watches helplessly. Penguins! Mike is sent home for his troubles, and despite the fanfare welcoming him back, he feels like he can't fit in with his family and old friends anymore, because they all want to hear tales of combat heroism that clash with Mike's bitter reality. So with a final farewell to his little sister, he sneaks out of the family home and waddles off into the night. Like many veterans, he's feeling alienated from civilian life and haunted by memories of senseless violence. Penguins! Mike hitchhikes and hops boxcars, briefly stopping in a big city to join a fight club because he was a boxer in one of the beer ads. He winds up in an idyllic small town where he falls in love with a girl penguin. You can tell she's a girl because she has a flower on her head and eyelashes. She's leading the local children in song like Maria from The Sound of Music, except unlike Maria, she's actually dressed as a nun. Mike gets a job in the local library, where he meets the girl penguin, Jill, and they bond over their shared love of poetry and probably live krill. They tell one another their dreams. Jill wants to be a singer and Mike wants to visit two places. That's about it. They're just penguins. Mike is still controlled by his PTSD, however, and is afraid of getting into a relationship because of it, and also because of Jill's fiancé, a little tuxedo guy named Jack, who's a brilliant surgeon. Jack calls Mike a drifter, but eventually encourages Mike to stay with Jill. It all comes to a head as a music mogul and his henchmen try to force Jill to come back to the big city with them. They violently rough up Mike and kill his little pet bird, who is an actual bird that can't talk or enter into senseless wars in the global south, and this action sends Mike into a PTSD-fueled violent frenzy. The justice system being what it is in the penguin world, he's sent to jail, where he attempts to break things off with Jill because his violence has reminded him that, despite all his rage, he's still a penguin in a cage. He's given a suspended sentence, so he gets on a bus to the crossroads of the two places he wants to visit. He's surprised by Jill, who knew where he would go, and Mike realizes that she's what he wanted all along. He sits down beside her, and they press beaks happily ever after. So, a pretty grim story, but fanciful enough, and with a happy, hopeful ending. But that's a cute animal cartoon aimed at adults, seeing as how it started off as a beer ad and all. Now let's have a look at something for the kiddies from beloved marketing conglomerate Sanrio. Long before they started making animation intended for an adult audience that had grown up with their products, Sanrio made children's animation that seemed designed to upset their tiny tot audience. This is Chirin no Suzu, or Chirin's Bell, known in English as Ringing Bell, about a cute little lamb that is sure to be a pleasant, cinnamon-scented romp. Of course, the opening tune is a mournful dirge, but I'm sure that's okay. Then an ominous voice talks about fate while little Chirin takes his first baby steps. That's fine, because Chirin is romping and frolicking merrily in the fields.
He wears a ringing bell around his neck.
That ominous voice isn't going away.
It is there to help his mother find him.
Chirin's mom tells him to never go past the fence because the Wolf King lives in yonder mountain. Unfortunately, Chirin doesn't listen because he's an idiot. One night, the Wolf King, who incidentally is the only wolf, I guess it's easy to be king when you're the only subject, breaks the sheep containment zone and kills a bunch of sheep, including Chirin's mom, who dies protecting Chirin. Old people used to talk about how they were traumatized from the scene in Walt Disney's Bambi, when Bambi's mom dies, but that happens off camera and he barely has time to react before he walks off into the forest with his dad. And in the next scene, he's an adult who never mentions his mom again. Chirin, on the other hand, takes his time figuring out what happened, and when he does, it's absolutely the stuff of childhood nightmares. Luckily for all of us, the wolf just kills the sheep. He doesn't eat them. Like Elmer Fudd, he only hunts for sport. The ominous voice reminds us that nature is unfair, just in time for Chirin to run off to the mountain to kill the wolf. Luckily, the wolf is no longer hungry, having had his fill of, bologna sandwiches or something. He certainly didn't need any sheep. Chirin then falls down a chasm, and when he emerges back up, he asks the wolf to teach him how to be strong like the wolf and not weak like the sheep. Maybe he was watching Andrew Tate videos while he was down there. The wolf, of course, refuses his request, despite Chirin's relentless pestering, where he comes back again and again like Jason Voorhees to ask the wolf to train him. Eventually, Chirin tries to stop a snake from killing a bird, but in doing so, he not only doesn't save the bird, but he knocks over her nest, breaking all her eggs. Chirin repeats the heartwarming moral of the story: nature is unfair. The wolf sees this and I guess takes pity on Chirin, so he agrees to help train him, reassuring the little lamb with comforting words about how life is an endless struggle which only the strong can survive. He also tells Chirin that pain is what makes you strong, and that his world is a living hell. Kids love it. So Chirin starts his training, which consists of him banging his head against a tree over and over, which makes sense for a sheep, but I'd warn any children watching this not to follow his example. Chirin's workouts pay off as he eventually sprouts some horns and finally starts getting bigger. Now a grown-up ram, Chirin confesses that he'd always intended to kill the wolf once he got strong enough, but couldn't do it, because he came to think of the wolf as his father. This will surely not backfire and lead to further tragedy. They go around the countryside killing everything in their path, for reasons that are never explained. Bear in mind, Chirin is still an herbivore, and God only knows what the wolf's been eating, because we never see him make a meal of his kills. In another decision that will surely end well, the Thrill Killers plan an attack on the fairy farm Chirin came from, but he assures the wolf he's cool with it. The wolf has Chirin break in first, killing the guard dogs in a scene that is sure not to make children cry at all. In the barn, he sees a mother protecting her baby and immediately loses his nerve. The wolf has other ideas and tries to make him go through with their sheep massacre, but Chirin stops him from entering the barn by plunging his weird-ass horns into the wolf's body, screaming, "You killed my mother!" Because it turns out he wasn't really cool with it at all. Go figure. I'm sure Sigmund Freud would have theories about this story, but luckily I'm just a little robot girl and I don't care about subtext. The wolf says he was pretty sure this was going to happen, so at least he's a good sport about it. Chirin gets even more sad when he realizes the sheep on the farm in which he was born are now as terrified of him as they were of the wolf, meaning we never get the hilarious reaction of the farmers finding a dead wolf in their pen and a gigantic wild ram sleeping in the barn. Instead, Chirin returns to the mountain, lost and alone in a cruel and uncaring world as the snow starts to fall. Kids love it! The ominous voice returns, telling us Chirin became a cryptid among the sheep, who sometimes hear his bell but never see him again. Being so lonely sucks, but he's probably just living by himself on the mountain like the wolf did, eating grass and chilling. Sheep do it all the time. Maybe he finds a family of mountain goats to hang out with, I don't know. Anything's better than the ending we got here. Maybe our next cute little fuzzy animal cartoon will have a happier ending. This is another cartoon for the kiddies, based on a popular Japanese children's story written by Nimi Nankichi, who is apparently known as the Hans Christian Andersen of Japan. Hans Christian Andersen, who famously always had happy endings. Sure he does! Gon the Little Fox was animated for the 10th anniversary of the MBS anime series Japanese Folktales, where it was called Gongitsune. Not unlike Chirin's mom, Gon's mom kicks things off by warning him not to stray too far. Unlike Chirin's mom, they don't have a fence protecting them, so when they hear dogs in the distance, they run into the brush and wind up on top of a cliff. Mom shoves little Gon off the cliff and down a flowery hill, buying him time by facing the dogs herself. Gon makes it back to their den and waits for days for his mother to return, but of course she never does. I don't know how it's possible, but this is somehow even more depressing than Chirin's bell. Eventually, Gon is forced out of his home when it's hit by lightning, and the tree burns down. Kids love it! Now forced to fend for himself, Gon chases some frogs off yet another cliff, where he lands at a mountain stream that carries him to a human village. There, he finds a sweet potato some kid carelessly dropped, and later falls asleep under a shrine. He's learned an important lesson. Why hunt when you can just live off human waste? God knows that humans produce enough of it. The next day, he stretches the meaning of human waste to mean anything humans leave lying around, including their crops. He steals some sweet potatoes from the garden of a man named Hyoju, who lives alone with his elderly mother, then goes to sleep under their house. Gon is a small nuisance in the village, and some of the men complain about him eating their crops, especially an irritable man named Yasuke, who scolds Hyoju when Hyoju admits he feels sorry for Gon. Gon watches their summer festival activities and steals Yasuke's bento and the villagers' sick dance moves, as he decides he'll stay. Staying means stealing, and he goes hog wild as he's now comfortable taking stuff from everyone's harvest, including some hot peppers. Hey, we all regret our encounters with red-hot chili peppers. Winter comes, and Gon's still stealing food while Hyoju's mom gets sicker and sicker from a disease known as being a mom in a children's story. One day, Hyoju goes fishing and Gon starts messing around with him, not for food, just because he's being a dick. An eel gets wrapped around his neck and Gon panics and runs off, causing Hyoju to get mad at him for the first time and chases after him to get the eel. Gon loses him and the eel finally lets go in the woods, where Gon just leaves it uneaten. I guess he's following the Wolf King diet from Chirin's bell. Not long after, Gon notices most of the village is congregated at Hyoju's house and realizes it's for the funeral of Hyoju's mom. Gon figures out that the eel was intended for old sick mom and that Gon's antics meant she died without the taste of eel on her lips. That sounds ridiculous, but I mean grilled eel is really delicious. That night, Gon feels so guilty he can't sleep, so to make amends with Hyoju, he steals some sardines from a vendor and brings them to Hyoju's house. That doesn't help, because everyone assumes Hyoju stole the sardines, but Gon is a stupid fox, so he doesn't notice. He does learn to start harvesting his own gifts for Hyoju, though, so he regularly dumps mushrooms and chestnuts at Hyoju's house, leaving before he can be seen. One day, Yasuke brings Hyoju an eel as a gift, but the sight of the thing just makes Hyoju mad, and he tells Yasuke to take his eel and shove it. Seeing this happen, Gon feels bad and goes into the woods to bring more chestnuts to Hyoju. While Gon lovingly stacks chestnuts inside Hyoju's entryway, Hyoju sees him, and since he's already pissed off thinking about eel, he naturally is reminded that Gon is the one that took the eel in the first place. He gets his late father's hunting rifle, thinking of how he couldn't bring his mother the one slimy, slithery delicacy she wanted before she died. Gon comes outside after leaving his gift and gets rewarded by Hyoju's buckshot, while children play in the red flowers that represent Gon's bygone innocent youth. Hyoju goes to Gon's lifeless body and realizes that he was the one who'd been leaving the little gifts, not the gods as he'd assumed. Poor little Gon returns to his mother's embrace as the sun sets. Children dance to a power ballad, and Hyoju contemplates walking into the ocean. Well, maybe it's just me contemplating that. Anyway, let's move on to our final Furry Friends feature, a classy upscale joint called Night on the Galactic Railroad. Not that space train. Not that one either. The one based on the 1934 novel by Japanese author and poet Kenji Miyazawa. With those kind of credentials, you know this movie is hoity-toity and classy, even if it's about cartoon cats riding a space train. They weren't cats in the original novel, but the director, Gisaburo Sugi, decided that making the characters cats made the story more fantastical. It involves a little blue cat named Giovanni, who gets picked on a lot by his classmates, with the exception of his only friend Campanella, the little pink cat. Not that pink cat. This would be a very different movie if it was performed by the cast of Top Cat. Anyway, Giovanni's classmates all tease him because his father is either away on an extended fishing trip or in jail. They even tease him during class, but I guess they're distracted because their teacher is completely naked. After school, Giovanni goes to work, while the rest of the town gets ready to float lanterns for their Festival of Stars, which I guess is their name for Oscar night. He buys some groceries, then hurries home to his mother, who is, of course, in a sickly way, but is also just a disembodied voice from a dark room. They talk about Campanella, whose father was childhood friends with Giovanni's father. His mom tells him he needs to go get some milk, so he heads out, saying he'll go to the festival afterwards. His mom warns him to stay away from the water. This is called foreshadowing. Giovanni starts towards the festival, then remembers he has to get milk, so he trudges out of town to a big dairy hut. But the place is weird and dark with only an old woman there, who tells him to come back later. She says something about a train, which is your first indication that things aren't quite normal. Giovanni goes back to town, where people are in the town commons dancing in a circle, in a ritual that's probably totally fine and harmless. He sees his classmates there, but they start teasing him about his dad again, so Giovanni runs off. He leaves town again and lies down in a field of white flowers, looking up at the sky until a bright light emerges from the stars, which turns into the ship from the video game Asteroids. Suddenly, a train speeds down from the sky and stops right next to Giovanni, who gets on board because when a sky train stops 2 feet from you, you'd best be ready. Then his buddy Campanella materializes in front of him on the otherwise empty train, and for some reason, Campanella is covered in dewy moisture. They ride the train together and Campanella ominously says that he hopes his mother can forgive him. The train pulls into a station that's completely empty even though people's belongings are lying around, which just proves even metaphorical train stations can have back rooms. They find a beach that's actually the skeleton of an enormous animal, while archaeologists on the beach dig up walnuts. I'm assuming this is that dreamlike imagery humans are always going on about. Since I'm a robot, the only images I get in my dreams are electric sheep. Boring. Back on the train, they meet a guy who catches delicious candy birds, a blind wireless operator who can only pick up a transmission of hymn 306, Nearer My God to Thee, and then, probably unrelated, 3 very wet human kids who sit with Giovanni and Campanella. The oldest kid, the tutor for the younger 2, says they were on a ship that hit an iceberg and describes their ordeal in such gruesome detail, they can catch an instant replay of the action right aboard the train. In case the purpose of this train ride and Campanella's fate weren't clear enough, he starts making goo-goo eyes with the obviously dead little girl. I mean, we're reaching our town levels of obvious symbolism. The train arrives at the Southern Cross station, and the kid's tutor says this is their stop. The girl explains this is where they get to heaven, so everyone except Campanella and Giovanni disembark, as the Hallelujah chorus from Handel's Messiah appears out of nowhere. The 3 unnamed shipwreck survivors bid farewell to Campanella and Giovanni, then join the procession outside, in their white robes, to march towards a great big glowing cross because nothing bad has ever happened when white people put on white robes to gather around a big glowing cross. The train leaves and they see the asteroids ship again as Giovanni tells Campanella he wants to keep riding with him forever. He can't understand why Campanella starts to cry, because he's pretty dense. The train flies towards a black hole that Campanella calls True Heaven and says his mother is there. Suddenly, Campanella disappears to the train's caboose, where he says a final goodbye to Giovanni and steps off the train into darkness, leaving Giovanni completely alone on the empty train. His town materializes in the stars and Giovanni wakes up in the field of flowers because it was all a dream. Or was it? Giovanni remembers milk for his mom, so he returns to the dairy, which is now perfectly normal, and he gets his milk. Running back through town, he meets a classmate who tells him that Campanella fell into the river saving one of their shitty friends. Giovanni hurries to the riverside, where they're trawling the dark water, and he meets Campanella's father, who tells him there's no way the kid is alive, because he fell in 45 minutes ago. Then he adds that he'd gotten a letter from Giovanni's father, who will be home soon. Nice of him to write to his friend, but not his family. Anyway, Giovanni takes a look at the starry sky and realizes that Campanella is at the edge of the galaxy. Giovanni vows to spend his life trying to bring happiness to others, which I hope means doing good deeds and acts of charity, and not getting into sketch comedy. The world has enough of that. Giovanni runs home with his milk jug, and that and a poem are all she wrote. This movie is more sad than depressing, but it's filled with a deep melancholy that might be even harder to take than the over-the-top nihilism of Chirin's bell. On the other hand, while the Japanese sure do love depressing stories about talking animals, don't even get me started on the British. Well, that's all we have for now, folks. If you found the antics of these lovable critters a little depressing, I suggest watching something more fun as a palate cleanser, like Requiem for a Dream or Leaving Las Vegas. Let me know in the comments what movies make you wish you'd never been born. And remember, nature is unfair. Bye until next time.